There's a new Sims killer on the market. It's called inZOI.
New game. So this is a game kind of like The Sims, I guess. It's like Sims-like.
EA has some competition.
Be checking out inZOI.
EA better watch out, there's a new kid on the block.
Is this new game better than The Sims?
This, my friends, is inZOI.
I have no idea how I'm gonna record this video.
If AI is used to like generate stupid, incoherent dances for a video game, good.
For the past year, I have seen loads of people hype up an upcoming game that they consider to be the game that would finally bring competition to a genre that has been dominated for over 2 decades. The life simulator genre has been the home of The Sims and nothing but The Sims, and it's easy to see why that is. The Sims started off as a game meant to satirize the reality of living under a capitalist society, hence why the first game carries a lot of inspiration of 1950s culture in terms of furniture, attire, and music, and it's also why the first game is impossible to beat.
Welcome to hell!
The Sims franchise went from being a critique of living under capitalism to being one of the very definitions of the horrors of capitalism in the gaming industry.
It was said that you would destroy this Sim, not join them!
So understandably, people wanted an alternative to those games, and in March of this year, players would finally get a real alternative to The Sims in the form of inZOI. This game sucks. Alright, I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me dial back a bit. First off, I want to start by saying that competition is never always a bad thing. In fact, in most cases, it can help the products increase in quality over time as they try to one-up each other. An example I could give with this is when WWE finally got serious competition again in the form of AEW. I'm sorry, I keep referencing pro wrestling in my videos. Wait, no, I'm not sorry. So when I heard that a new game was coming out which was going to compete against The Sims, I was interested at first. But the more I learned about the game, and the more discourse I saw around it, the less excited I got. But regardless, I still decided to give the game a try when it did come out, and after an hour and a half, I refunded it and got my $40 back, which I then used to buy my 15th Silver the Hedgehog plushie. Look at him, he's adorable, I love him so much. Look, he's got little big old hands, and then he's got, this little quill is a bit, it's a bit unraveled, but that's fine, because he's still precious to me. I love him so much. There are a lot of issues I have with inZOI, and I think it's worth discussing them, because this game that was hyped up as the Sims killer is nothing more than a Sims reviver. So today, I'm gonna go over some of my issues with the game and why I think it isn't what people say it is.
We got trouble.
I'm gonna start off by talking about one of the things I love the most about The Sims, and that's its sense of humor. The Sims had a style that was always charming no matter what was happening in the game. You could be doing the most mundane tasks and they would still find a way to make it entertaining or silly. That's what makes the game so appealing to me. It doesn't try to take itself seriously and it revels in making everyday life as cartoonish or goofy as possible. And some of the best examples of this are how the game integrates supernatural elements. Things like aliens, zombies, vampires, werewolves, and even the Grim Reaper are all Sims.
She is such a bad bitch though!
And the games have different scenarios that can happen involving them. Your Sim can get abducted by aliens and then come back to Earth pregnant carrying an alien offspring. This is someone's fetish, bad example. You can live inside a haunted house and encounter all kinds of supernatural elements involving ghosts, and there are haunted objects, rituals you can perform. You can become a medium and contact the underworld. You can get a ghost pregnant. Point is, there's a lot of different silly and over-the-top things that you can do in The Sims. It takes pride in its wacky setting, and you can tell that it has a lot of soul put into it. They even went out of their way to create lore for each of the civilians or townies that you encounter in the game. For example, this is Bella Goth. She is a part of the Goth family and is married to Mortimer Goth. She has 2 kids named Cassandra and Alex. This character has a lot of mystery attached to them. As in The Sims 2, it's implied that she was abducted by aliens and placed into Strange Town. When you visit her and look at her traits, she has no memory of her past life. And if you were to make cereal in the game, you can see a missing person print on the milk carton that clearly shows Bella Goth's face. There is a lot of fan speculation about her and her future appearances as well, and if the current Bella Goth is a clone that replaced the one who is stuck in Strange Town. And this is all about one of the many townies in the game. There is technically a set timeline in the Sims universe, with each game taking place at either a separate place in time or an alternate dimension. But if we went into that, then this video would be way too long. Now, if we move over to Enzoy, the townies or zois are randomly generated, and they aren't nowhere near as interesting as the characters in The Sims. Enzoy uses their complex character AI as a crutch to make up for the fact that these characters are lifeless shells. There is a very noticeable lack of life in the NPCs in the game, and it's very telling when a game brags about having progressive character creation options like gender and sexual preference, but then in the actual game world, every single NPC is straight because they didn't bother putting more than an ounce of work into NPC variation. Like, at that point, just make every NPC pansexual like The Sims did. For f***'s sake, if The Sims 1, which was released in 2000, had queer representation, then there really is no excuse. I just don't understand this. Like, are you trying to win over The Sims audience or not? Because, I hate to break it to you, but most of the people who still play The Sims in 2025 are women and queer people. There is only so much that AI can do for you to carry your game until it becomes apparent that there is no real soul put into it. When you compare the worlds in these games, it's night and day. Enzoy brags about having an open world for your Zois the same way that The Sims 3 had an open world, which is funny considering The Sims 3 is the most poorly optimized Sims out of the entire series, mostly because of that open world. Enzoy is filled with invisible walls, uninspiring areas, and assets that feel as though they were taken from other games entirely. Basically, the world of Enzoy has cities that are based off real-life cities, like Los Angeles. And while yeah, it's easier to just base your game world off of real life, it also shows a big lack of creativity when you just choose to make a replica of a real-life city instead of creating an original one. And it especially becomes cheap when your replica of LA just looks like you asset flipped Los Santos and put it in your game. Enzoy doesn't have unique or creative towns the way The Sims does with places like Strangetown or Pleasant View. It's just, oh, this is meant to be LA, this is meant to be Korea, and this is meant to be Indonesia. Like, yeah, that's cool to have. But it just kind of goes to show that you're not doing anything awfully creative. Just like the art style of this game, everything in Enzoy feels as though it was pumped out of a lifeless corporate tube.
Where's the love?
The Sims and EA are obviously bloodthirsty examples of corporate gaming themselves, but at least their product feels like an actual video game. Enzoy instead feels like an experiment created solely for the purpose of training Krafton's AI. I'm not against the game having a realistic art direction, but when you try to make it as realistic as possible, it just feels so devoid of joy, if that makes any sense. I think the main reason to why The Sims is so charming to me is because the direction it took with its art style and gameplay both blend together so nicely, and it results in an experience that can serve as both serious or unserious depending on your playstyle. It's not for everyone, and I think that's why a lot of people wanted an alternative, but to me, it feels very appropriate. But then, when you turn to Enzoy, it's so soulless that almost every logo or graphic in the game is AI generated, which brings me to my next problem with the game and probably my biggest.
That was boring. You're not funny and nobody likes you.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Limus rants for an ungodly amount of time about why generative AI is the worst thing to ever exist. Today's episode is going to be all about Enzoy. Woo! Anyways, this game likes to take pride in its usage of generative AI, so much so that the banner and images promoting the game are AI generated themselves. This is an issue that is the whole reason as to why I'm even making this video to begin with. To start, when it was revealed that Enzoy would be using generative AI in their game, the studio behind the game Krafton posted a tweet responding to criticism of this decision. Allow me to read it for you. It says,
"Hello everyone, we have seen that there are some discussions regarding the generative AI feature used in Enzoy. We would like to inform you that Enzoy is addressing AI features as follows. All AI features within Enzoy utilize proprietary models developed by Krafton and are trained using solely company-owned and copyright issue-free assets and data. In addition, Enzoy's AI capabilities are built into the client as on-device solutions, and therefore do not make communications online with external servers. We deeply appreciate your valuable feedback, and we will make every effort to prevent any potential issues in the future. Ew."
That last part wasn't in the tweet, I don't know why I said that. So it sounds like there's nothing to worry about, right? If you know nothing about how generative AI works, then sure, everything is fine. I'm gonna mansplain what generative AI is to you, so I hope you're ready. Generative AI demands an extensive amount of energy and electricity in order to function. There are these things called data centers, and they hold most of the computing power that is needed for AI. But because generative AI in particular is so demanding, the number of data centers that are created for generative AI alone increases by, you guessed it, a f***tillion. To put this into broader terms, ChatGPT, for example, can generate over 1.3 thousand megawatt hours of electricity. And this is just for the training of GPT-3. If we were talking about GPT-4, then that number increases to approximately 65,000 megawatt hours, which is the amount of energy it would take to fully charge your smartphone 522 times over. And that's just for generating a single image. Because the energy is so demanding, these systems and centers need extensive cooling, and that's where the water consumption comes into play. According to an article from Forbes by Cindy Gordon, AI's projected water usage could reach 6.6 billion M3 by 2027, which to simplify is about 6.6 trillion liters of water. And this usage of natural resources is what leads to immense concern from the general public, especially given how normalized it has all become. You'll see YouTubers on this very site use AI for their thumbnails and not show much concern over it. So when putting that into the context of a video game, where generating AI images and patterns is baked into the game's code and encouraged, then there is something clearly wrong. So, TLDR, we are f***ed. Oh, but it's okay, because Krafton themselves say that the AI is trained off company-owned assets and that their dataset is based off a custom model. This is a lie.
What? I think so.
Looking into the files of the game, you can see that this custom model they speak of doesn't exist, and instead they use Stable Diffusion, which is not trained off company assets. And this is further proven by the fact that people were able to generate images of copyrighted characters like Mickey Mouse through the Enzoy generative AI. So, why does this matter? Well, because the second most negative thing about the use of generative AI is the impact it has on the job market, specifically the jobs of artists. Generative AI art and images cannot exist without stealing from the work of actual artists, and this was why so many people were upset over Krafton saying that they were incorporating generative AI into their game. So when it's revealed that this custom model they speak of doesn't exist, and that this tweet is just utter bullshit, then it should become very apparent to you that this game is not what they crack it up to be. But you can just not use the generative AI feature, is what you may be saying if you were sniffing glue. While this is true, it's important to understand that this feature is encouraged in the game, and even without the participation in it, the game still uses AI-generated images in its world. This taco truck is AI-generated, this arcade machine, this ice cream truck, this sign, you name it. If Krafton is willing to use generative AI in these areas, and then lie about it in tweets, there's no telling how else they will use it in the game without your knowledge. A lot of the time, companies and studios will use the excuse of creating custom AI models to justify their usage of it. However, what they don't tell you is that the only real way of making a custom model is by training an already pre-existing base model. As it stands, there is no way to create a custom AI model and dataset purely off of original assets. Because people don't know how to do a Google search, they take it at a face value because why would a company tell such an obvious lie? No, you see, they don't use Google search. They use ChatGPT to get all of their answers whenever they want to find something out. Stable Diffusion is pretty explicit on how their AI models work and what it takes to truly create a custom dataset. They created their models off pre-existing images and texts that required over 5 billion assets, and even with fine-tuning, it would still require thousands of assets. Now let me ask you something. Do you think a studio like Krafton has 5 billion company assets and images and text just lying around to create a custom AI model? Of course not. Not even a Warner Brothers sized company can provide that much original assets. And on all of Krafton's websites and papers discussing Enzoy, there is zero mention of Stable Diffusion or Midjourney playing a part in their creation of a proprietary model, despite the game files stating otherwise. What they instead say is that they use generative AI to cut costs and make game development faster in regards to dialogue writing, voice acting, and even 3D modeling. Do you really think a studio who wants to cut corners is going to take the time to create a custom AI dataset model with original assets that is impossible to create? While The Sims has its issues, and there is no doubt in my mind that EA would do something similar to this, it's crucial to point out that they didn't get as popular as they did through the use of generative AI. They did it by being a blood-sucking corporation. Okay, look. You have over $1,000. Would you use it to buy all the Sims 4 DLC? Or would you use it to buy 40 giant Silver the Hedgehog plushies? I think you all know what the right answer is. Here's another one I got. He looks like he aided a bee, but you know, that's why we love him. Moving forward, I think people need to be more comfortable having discussions about generative AI, because it's concerning to me how much of it has been normalized in the gaming scene. I have seen content creators be so openly against generative AI, but then the minute inZOI came out, each one of them flocked to it like a moth to a lamp. I feel like if people believe they can get away with it, they will always take the easy way out instead of putting the work in. And this goes beyond game developers, musicians, animators, and even YouTubers are guilty of this as well. If they think nobody will notice, or if they think it's funny enough, then people will take advantage of generative AI. We have seen this time and time again. Once people start making exceptions for AI of SpongeBob characters singing Gangsta's Paradise, then people will start making exceptions for using AI voices in their projects and analog horrors. And then they will start making exceptions for AI images as long as they are funny enough. And it will just keep going and going and going because people either don't care or are too lazy to learn why they should care. We literally have people in the White House advocating for the usage of AI, and people still wonder how we even got to this point. My issues with enZOI go much beyond the game itself. How much longer are we going to make exceptions for certain uses of generative AI until we just flat out accepted it altogether? We have nobody but ourselves to blame for how much this has developed, and I just know that in 5 years, I do not want to be having this exact same conversation again. The best way that I can end off this video is with a quote that I feel reflects a lot of this. Nobody gives a care about the fate of labor as long as they can get their instant gratification. This is a quote from Squidward.
Nobody gives a care about the fate of labor as long as they can get their instant gratification.
That was a great speech, Squidward.
Thank you to the people over on my Patreon for helping make this video possible. People like Pandacade, Ellender, and Gabe Neal. Your support means the world to me and it helps me to keep making the videos that I want to make. Thank you all so much.
Coffee, spelled backwards, is EFOC, which is funny, because until I've had my coffee, I don't give EFOC.